Rebates for groups like taxi drivers and private hire car drivers will be reimbursed from next month onwards. They've been brought forward to help drivers cope financially. The rebates were first announced last week to help ease the impact of petrol hikes. The price increase was part of plans to encourage the adoption of electric vehicles. Nadir Mokhtar with more.
The petrol duty rates for premium and intermediate petrol were raised last Tuesday as part of budget announcements made by Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat. The move is part of the government's plan to encourage more drivers to switch to electric vehicles. To ease the transition, Mr. Heng also announced a slew of road tax rebates. Still, there were concerns for those who rely on vehicles for their livelihoods. As such, authorities announced on Wednesday that some of the rebates will be brought forward to help affected drivers. Taxi drivers and private hire car drivers will receive $360 spread over 4 months. Disbursement will begin in May. Taxi operators will pass on their road tax rebates in the form of rental rebates for their drivers in March and April. These are on top of the previously announced 15% road tax rebate for vehicle owners. Grab's rental partners will do likewise. They will pass on the road tax rebates to their drivers, while Gojek will introduce additional incentive rebates for their drivers between March and April this year. Motorcycle owners will receive a single payment of $80 for smaller bikes and $50 for bikes with bigger engines. They'll receive them from May onwards. 60% rebates on road tax will also be given for a year from August. Despite the rebates, some MPs were concerned about the impact of higher petrol prices on the wider community.
With ERP resuming and the raising of petrol price, would it not cause inflation to rise? The cost of higher petrol costs will impact all sectors of the economy, from retail to manufacturing to transport of office workers to students, as well as goods and services. While we want to support our lower and middle income household, no one will be spared from inflation.
I'm also concerned that increased petrol duties will lead to increases in the price of other goods, especially the daily necessities. It is inevitable that companies will pass the burden to consumers, at least in part. Will the rebates be sufficient to help families, especially the lower income earners, to cope with the increased cost of living?
Other MPs welcomed the effort to push Singapore towards a car-light society and to encourage the use of electric vehicles, but infrastructure remains an issue.
Overall, how much cost-effective will it be to use an EV versus an internal combustion engine vehicle? The amount of energy that we have to produce additional to power 800,000 vehicles on a daily basis. Do we have enough power supply to do that as well? And what is the cost to the whole country?
One of the biggest consumer concerns when it comes to EVs is reliable, convenient, and consistent access to charging stations, or better yet, supercharging stations. The economics and infrastructure considerations of installing charging stations are complex.
Ms. Nadia added that many of the financial incentives have a stop date of 2023 attached to them and is concerned that means it may take longer for drivers to adopt EVs.